Capacitors are useful in many applications. For example, they can act as temporary batteries, be used to build time delay circuits, and allow us to tune in to our favorite radio stations. In these applications, the time taken for the capacitor to charge and discharge plays an important role. Here, we will learn how to use a value called the time constant to determine the discharging time of capacitors in RC circuits. Capacitors are frequently used with resistors in circuits known as RC circuits. The two components give these circuits their name. The letter R stands for resistor, while the letter C stands for capacitor. Now, let us look at this RC circuit. Besides a resistor and a capacitor, it also has a 9-volt battery and a switch. When the switch is moved to position B, current flows from the capacitor to the resistor. The capacitor then begins discharging. If we want to determine the discharging time of a capacitor in an RC circuit, how can we do so? Let's look at this RC circuit, where a 100 kilo ohm resistor and a 100 microfarad capacitor are used. We can determine the discharging time of the capacitor in this RC circuit by first calculating the time constant tau of the RC circuit. To obtain the time constant, we multiply the resistor and the capacitor values. The time constant of this RC circuit is 10 seconds. To understand what the time constant can tell us about the discharging time, let's measure the voltage across the capacitor Vc at intervals of tau. To do so, we use a stopwatch and a multimeter. Once the switch is moved to position B, we start the stopwatch. The capacitor begins discharging and the voltage reading on the multimeter Vc decreases. As Vc decreases, we record the values at intervals of tau. Now, let's study the values recorded. Notice that it takes tau for Vc to reach 3.31 volts, which is approximately 1/3 of the initial voltage of 9 volts. It takes 5 tau for Vc to reach 0.06 volts, which is approximately 1% of the initial voltage of 9 volts. Both tau and 5 tau are commonly used in describing the discharging time of capacitors in RC circuits. In summary, the time constant can tell us two things about the discharging time. 1. It takes one time constant for a capacitor in an RC circuit to discharge to approximately 1/3 of the initial voltage. 2. It takes 5 time constants for a capacitor in an RC circuit to discharge to approximately 1% of the initial voltage.